calling the Public Safety Committee to order at 6:07 p.m. And the first order of business on the agenda is consider RFP for village attorney and village prosecutor services. Rebecca, should I turn it over to you to introduce the item?
Sure. Well, this is one item that when I initially came on board, the board approved the purchasing policy, of which requested the RFP of several different services. So village attorney was one of those. We're sitting to this one at her financial advisor, and so it's now coming to this group for review. I know that President Rosick had also requested to be a part of the reviewing group, and had a suggestion of actually moving this RFP back on the timeline. So if that is the desire of the group, I'm amenable to doing that, by all means, but I'd ask that we kind of continue the review process of the RFP, so at least I could close that up and then schedule it to release in November.
I guess I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem moving back. I mean, is there any reason that we're wedded to this timeline, or is there?
I was just doing it to try to make my work plan objectives.
Okay.
So if you are okay moving it back, I'm okay moving it back, but
Can you still meet your work plan objectives?
well, I mean, we'd have the understanding that I'd release it in November, get responses in December, do interviews and recommendations in January, and solidify contracts in February. I do need to have it done.
Regardless, you'll be able to meet that timeline?
Yeah, it'll just push it 2 months. I'm involved, so there's 3 other RFPs that are also being reviewed tonight. I'm involved as a project staff member in all 4, in a pretty great level of detailed review. So it's okay for me, because I'll be able to focus on more than on the 3 of them, but I'm also happy to get it done if that's what the board's pleasure is. You should also be advised that under our current ordinances, the village president does make a recommendation on the village attorney to the village board. The village board must approve village attorney services. You'll also note that in that current ordinance, it calls for village attorney and prosecutor services to be the same individual. In RFP, I have distinctly allowed for both prosecution to be submitted independent of village attorney, because I'd like to test that market and see what's available. So in such case that we decide to elect a different prosecutor and village attorney for those services, we would then just go to amend the village code.
Okay. That sounds good. And I guess at the end of the day, I'm okay pushing time on back as long as you're okay to meet your work plan.
Yep, so what I would do is I would
put stress and pressure on you.
No, I mean, breathing room is always welcome, but if anything, I want us to all be on the same page. So then I would schedule a release of it in November. It's important to me, I guess, that it releases in November.
So in order to, well, I guess what I'm trying to say here actually is we would push the timeline back in order, I missed the first part of this. For what reason?
There was a request to consider potential to push the timeline back by President Rosick, and as I looked at it, I said, well, yeah, we could push it back.
But what was the justification?
Because there were a number of different proposals were not the same. So, for example, in the other standing committee meeting tonight, they were doing 3 RFPs, one for IT,
okay, great.
one for agenda management, one for document.
I saw that, and of the 4, I think this one is probably the most important. And I would hate, if we were to push any of them back, I would say not this one. I would go for one of the other ones, just because we might have a completely different board in the spring, and if we do, it might be a very young, inexperienced board. We're losing 2, if not 3 of our senior members. So I would want to make sure that we complete this process before that were to happen.
So one of the reasons why I was specific about I'm not comfortable with any later than releasing this in November is because I know it can be accomplished within the 3-month time frame.
Is that an adequate amount of time to do a proper search for what we're doing?
I feel it will be. I'm accounting for the holiday in between there because we all know practicality-wise kind of the world shuts down.
Let me rephrase that. Because in the academic year, there are certain times where you will look for new staff and people are on the market.
This will be okay.
This is
Yeah. But I with the expectation that we agree that we're going to make some recommendations in January and be solidifying contracts in February.
I'd be fine with making that, so that's my expectation.
Okay,
I wouldn't anticipate any slot on that.
okay.
Mr. Chair?
Oh, good.
If I may. So what is the role of this committee in this RFP process? If the president has the authority to recommend?
From my experience, it's unique to have a recommendation come from a village president because the service is hired at the liberty of the village board. However, we all know that our code hasn't been updated in several years, or reports of it that are out of date. So I'm wondering if maybe this just wasn't updated at some point in time, or maybe it was like that for a specific reason in time. But it's coming to this group because all new RFPs are reviewed by a standing committee. I had suggested it come to this group primarily because we have JPNL, which is also reviewing 3 others that are coming through that are larger in nature at this time, and they also have a waiting list of a number of items that we need to get solidified prior to February of next year. So it has a waiting list. So that's how it ended up here for your review. I think you're very adequate, as well as any other committee would be in handling this.
So my question for you is, do you want to, I had a couple comments on the RFP itself, just minor stuff. I think it's really well done. You nice job putting it together. There's a couple little tiny things.
I would love to hear them.
Okay.
If you have them.
Just looking through, A2, 24 hours on time is expected. I mean, that's a pretty high standard.
Is that, the current response time?
Yeah, so you obviously learn how to work with each other through a time period and how each person likes to communicate. But typically we want to have an understanding whether the person's going to be out of the office. If so, even if it's acknowledgement of received, we'll talk later, which is customary to have it on my end, and the person's on, and whoever we're working with. But that's in case we do have some emergent need.
Okay, I'm good with it then. The only other things I have are A5, I think it's legal opinions and advice. They will type over there.
Oh, yes.
And the other thing I had, kind of going to Tammy's point, kind of dovetails with it, is termination of contract. We don't specify when the village attorney services will be terminated. And I'd love it if we could specify a long-term date, because we don't want somebody to come in, look around and say, well, we can't do this, and then all of a sudden you're back to square one. It'd be nice if we, 180 days, I don't know, if you get like 360 days, maybe, or 180 days as far as you go, but.
Ironically, the village code also specifies 60 days, which I find to be odd. Again, that's why I mentioned the fact that I think it's just something that's been very
Village code.
right. So I think whatever direction we decide may cause us to go back and maybe update that section.
Yeah, that's.
Sounds antiquated, and I also agree that having the village president be she's not the appointed power, she can just make recommendations. Are we, as a body, able to skirt those recommendations and choose differently? Or is this?
Before I move on to that question, Trustee Warren, what page were you on where the term came up? I just want to make sure I'm noting that correctly.
I'm looking at the paper copy, so I'm on page 5.
Okay, yep. Oh, under term.
Yeah.
Okay, so for specifically with regards to the village prosecutor services, one of the reasons why I had provided the 90-day in that one component is because one of the things that I've asked the other municipalities to do is review our prosecution services together.
Okay.
It's been one of the areas that our communities for the last 10 years have talked about potential avenue to save on this service if you're
Consolidation.
I'm sorry?
Consolidation with the
Correct.
municipality.
Correct, of prosecution services. So it's one that's going to go under review next year with the village managers. This happens about once every 5 years. Whether or not anything comes of that would be different, but it would of course be our intent to provide as much notice as possible.
Okay, that sounds good to me. That covers all my questions. Okay.
Well, so in order for us to split the RFP or to consider 2 separate agencies, let's just say, we're going to have to amend the code anyway.
We don't have to amend the code at this time, you know, if you may end up picking the same,
No, if we were to.
if you were, yes, then I would suggest that you amend it. Which is probably not a bad idea to do, just to review the code in general, that section.
I mean, since we're opening this up to RFP for the first time in 3 decades.
Right? So when I looked at the code, I didn't set up your RFP to mimic that because it just recognizes antiquated and it's probably just never been reviewed.
Sure.
From this perspective or this lens before.
Any other comments? Do you need any kind of motion from us, or is it just
Actually, a recommendation from the group would be helpful, and then it will come to the board on September 3rd for approval. And with your blessing, I will modify the dates so that we're releasing the RFP in November. That's it.
pretty good? I
All I
think
got.
all those things work for me. As a recommendation.
If you have any other questions, feel free to let me know. I like that.
Sounds good.
Okay.
I need a motion to adjourn the public.
Actually, a motion to recommend would be helpful.
Oh, I move to recommend that the RFP come to the board on September 3rd with the adjustment in timeline that we discussed. Is that,
And including the village president in the review process.
and including the village president in the review process?
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion?
So I did have a question regarding that, because I also noticed in the 3 other RFPs that are going to JPL, that it was written in the process that, well, in this case, I guess you're going to be one of the, not interviewers, but, well, along those lines, and that's how it's phrased for the other 3 RFPs that are going to JPL.
Correct. Typically, we turn to the chair of that standing committee to work with us through the process unless that chair would be unable to serve or would like to have somebody else from the group.
I want to participate in this.
Okay, I was kind of hoping so.
This is all right.
This is the benefit of having.
I like to think that for 17
Well, I
years,
would say
so-
that this makes a lot of sense, given your background.
Yeah, but that's some expertise, but
But I guess the other question I'm going to ask everyone is in the same room, but it would be that all 3 of those RFPs, the interviewing process would be 1 trustee.
Yeah, so that's the one thing that would be different in this case, and I don't know why the ordinance is the way that it is. You know, seeing that it calls for the village president to make a recommendation, it would seem fitting that, you know, if she has a desire, that she be available to participate in the process. It could also be delegated to just the chair of the standing committee. That's really a discussion for you guys as a board.
So I guess one thing I would not want to do is hinder the process based on her availability.
Oh, okay. So
If she were not available and we had a time-sensitive issue, would we have to wait then until she's available?
I'm gonna have the schedule laid far out in advance. You know, I found that even when, you know, reviewing, you know, people can call in, people can, you know, participate at a level that they see fitting. We won't be able to staff, we've never staffed a process because someone runs into a conflict, because we do such a advanced job of laying that out. So.
And Rebecca, just to be clear, I looked at my calendar today. I have like no vacation planned whatsoever from now until the end of the year, unfortunately, so I'll be around.
See, Warren.
Wow.
You know another So.
Oh, we didn't vote.
Oh.
Oh.
There you go.
So motion second, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you.
Now we have to adjourn into, do I have a motion to adjourn the public safety committee?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 3-0.
I will I will convene the Community and Business Relations Committee meeting at 6:20. We have one item on our agenda before us tonight, consider special event ordinance. This is meeting number 4. In our packet, there's a memo summarizing all the other discussion that we've had on this item. Trustee Warren, were you on the committee the last time we talked about this, or was it Trustee Maher?
I think I was on for, last time we talked about this was my first meeting on this topic.
Right,
so I've heard
okay,
about
so you're up to speed on all of that. So very helpful in this packet, now I've lost the page. But there were a list of questions that were before the committee, as far as considering an ordinance policy, and our resolution on those items are in red on page 2 of the memo, which is packet page number 141. So just to review that, and attached is a drafted ordinance based on this discussion. So based on our discussion, the number of events are not limited in the draft that is before us tonight for consideration, or for review, consider. We agreed that every applicant would be charged a fee, that the fee would be uniformly charged, and that no one would be exempt. The one item is item number 3, around should all applicants pay for village services if identified as a need, such as police and public works. And it says the committee agreed more information was required before they answered this question. We actually had more information brought to us.
Correct.
And so I feel like that's not.
Yeah, you are correct. You had a table that
Yes.
came to of all the special events. So it's coming back in my memory too. Of which I've actually asked staff internally to maintain and log in now moving forward every event. It will also help us to track who's doing which events, which year. And my understanding from Lean is that we were going to be charging everyone for those special event permits with the exception of the village. So the only event that my understanding that would apply to would be the 4th of July parade. We help facilitate that, so we're not going to charge ourselves for the administration of our event.
So the fee is going to be uniformly charged, which I recollect that. But then any services that are needed in addition, did we agree that each group was going to be charged that, or did we not resolve that issue?
Yes, unless, and Barbie, correct me if I'm wrong with any of it, because I think we're in the same meeting. Yes, unless the board decided to waive.
That's right.
My recollection was that we were going to, maybe that's how we resolved it. I think a part of the discussion was that for-profit, like businesses that took out a permit for a street festival would be charged those additional fees. They would be quoted at the time of review, so that they could decide whether they wanted to carry that charge or not. And that nonprofits would be under review, but maybe how we resolved that, we realized that that wouldn't be manageable or clear. So maybe we left that open, that it would be decided by the board.
Yeah, I thought it was, we decided the fee would apply to everyone, but we had the discretion to pull back the fee if we.
The charges. No, the fee for the permit is uniformly
Yeah.
applied, but any charges that are,
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Right.
Right, but I agree.
is that, okay,
That's what I'm comfortable with
right.
right now. I don't know whether or not that's what we decided.
I think we did.
I think we
My
did.
understanding is everyone is applied the fee, with the exception of the 4th of July. And everyone gets issued the estimated cost for us to provide services. The board decides whether or not they're charged those additional.
And then the ordinance pertains to the permit, the fee charging pertains to the policy, correct? So it's not indicated in the ordinance who pays what when, correct?
There is a section.
And I apologize, I didn't have a chance to review this in detail. today when I got back.
We do, okay, we exempt the 4th of July, I know, I didn't think of that 1 second.
Yep, and then
And if we can't find it now, I would just make a note to make sure that
Mhm.
it's consistent wherever it needs to be, just because the notes didn't seem that they were up to date. So that was my only thing, and maybe we just make a motion to move it to full board based on resolving that issue, if we can't find that section.
So in the fee section, in addition to these applicable fees, additional fees may be charged on a per man-hour basis for village services provided through village services. The applicant is required to pay all fees based upon additional village assistance. Payment is due within 60 days of the event. So that addresses the impact of where the fee for the application is paid versus additional, additional village services. Some of these events may not have an ability to pay until after the event happens.
Right.
Which is why we kicked out due payment within 60 days following the event, just so everyone's aware. You know, because a lot of the income that they're getting from the event will actually pay for the services provided. Then you had also, did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I've reviewed a lot of revisions to this, so I gotta look at each section again.
So it says that the one exemption of this is the 4th of July parade.
Correct.
And then under the definition of special event, it describes a special event and it excludes quote-unquote parades as defined and regulated by chapter 397 of the municipal code. So that is not going to be repealed and replaced.
Correct.
That will continue. And that was part of that was more of a logistical kind of housekeeping question that we talked through.
Nice.
Yes.
So,
So I'll open it up to comments from the committee.
and I think this looks great. I just had a couple of minor questions that hopefully we can kind of just work through. Just really two. I mean, the village clerk shall have the authority to consider a late application where good cause is demonstrated. Do we ever define good cause, or are we just using our discretion? I think either way is probably fine, but I was curious as I read through it.
I don't believe that we define good cause.
Yeah.
But I'm presuming, like most things, if I'm here, the clerk's gonna call and say, here's what we have.
Okay, so just, and it's
Yeah.
fine, I think, just to leave to your discretion. The other thing that I question, so, and maybe this is obvious to people who kind of dealt with ordinances a little bit more, but all special events applications are approved by the village board. Applications for new special events shall require a recommendation by JP&L. Does that mean they have to be passed by JP&L, or could JP&L say, we don't recommend this, but it goes to, does everything go to the board, I guess is my question.
Any recommendation from a standing committee goes to the board. And
Go ahead.
But does this require that it goes to JP&L in order to get to the board?
yes, if it's a new application,
I
So
guess-
they have the power to,
yeah, that's-
deny it.
Yeah.
I would say they're a recommending body.
Could it come up with a recommendation? I mean, obviously you want to see JP&L's recommendation,
Sure,
but if they
sure.
said, we really don't recommend this, but still come to the board, I guess would be my question.
What would you like to see happen?
I think it should still come to the board.
That's, I
think
guess
it
I
should
was
die in
still,
committee.
yeah, that was my train of thought. To me, it would be no differently than, a recommendation that came from the planning commission or something like that to the board. Whether they recommend to deny, recommend to approve, it still goes to the board, and the board has final decision.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for, I think that's.
But you're right, if
However-
that's not the case in here, we should specify it.
JP&L could hold it up and say that they want another meeting or they need more time.
and compromise the timeline.
Yes.
I mean, we can make clear that it should, and again, like, this is just making sure that it's together for, generations going forward.
Exactly, I appreciate your attention to that, but
So sometimes people will put in there, shall require a recommendation from JP&L within 30 days or 60 days, to kind of enforce the fact that, they are going to review it, but there has to be a time frame of which it needs to be reviewed and then passed over to the board.
I think, and that's very clear, one of the purposes of this ordinance was to be clear to the applicant.
Yeah, so they could build that into their time, because I'm thinking from that perspective, if I'm doing it, these are only new events that go there, not every event, just new events. So if I'm a new event planner, because usually I'm thinking about one who applied to us or had a desire to apply and is waiting for this process to be done. I want to build that into my time frame so that I know I'm coming to you early enough in order to get the direction I need, whether to pursue it.
And just to be clear for my motivation, this is not, I just feel like anytime you're this big special event that passes muster that goes to the village, I think you want the whole board voting on it. I just think that you don't want it to be something that can kind of die with the committee. I think people would feel better if kind of our vote. But I think JP&L, and obviously, I would give great weight to JP&L's recommendation, but I don't think, I think that should be something that goes in with the packet and the board votes and the whole thing. And I think we should probably be clear about that in the ordinance itself.
I agree.
It gives the clerk direction to tell the applicant what to expect.
Yeah.
So that we can change the language then to say that JPL or Cal or whatever the case may be. Or, I mean, however you want to put it, but just so that it can't be held up in committee.
Yeah, I would say just time the recommendation by JP&L.
And you said that you have so much on your plate to begin with, so.
Yeah. So something like this, for example, would bump in, like in scheduling,
Right.
as long as I'm here. Unless there's like an immediate pressing need, like we're gonna put the applications forward first. That's part of the reason why we have kind of like a backlog for some of the other more administrative things that they've had a desire to review. Because when applications come in, we need to be responsive to them, because we wanna work with people.
But if JPL doesn't have a recommendation for the full board, they say
Then
we
that's-
need another meeting, or we
Oh,
need, then what happens?
Should we put that, we're gonna put that clause in there that says within 30 days?
yeah, you could state within 30 days or 60 days.
Then we'll go with no recommendation. Then we'll just go up with the date.
Without the recommendation.
Okay. Even if they're saying we need more information, or whatnot, it's still comes to the full board.
I think you have to supply the information at the full board meeting. And hopefully none of this ever happens. But,
Yeah, but it's a good question though. I like that. So if the request was to provide more information, then we could say we would bundle it with whatever the recommendation was and go to the board. We've also had JP&L, I forget what we worked on earlier this year, but it was a topic where they made no recommendation, but it went then to the board.
Right.
Yeah.
I can't remember the topic,
Yeah.
but, so what do you think, 30 or 60 days?
I'd say, I'm tempted to give 60 simply because, August, for instance, we meet once now, once 30 days from now. So you
Yep.
theoretically, if somebody submitted an application yesterday, couldn't hit that timeline. But I don't know how far in advance I guess I haven't realized how far in advance all the application stuff is due. It seems like 60 days should work, but
Well, it says 90 days it's due 90 days prior to the event. But if we don't approve it until 60 days prior to, if we eat 2/3 of that time, it gives them 30 days to move ahead with their.
Yeah, first.
how 45 days.
Yeah.
And that way we know we'll have a meeting, we know both bodies will definitely meet in a lot of time.
We might also want to change
So if you start off
our
by saying
policy
your
then,
name.
as a board, because we have it where
Yeah,
we can't go, we voted on by full board the same night.
L-E-S-L-I-E and M-O-N-T-E-M-U-R-R-O, and I'm one of the owners and founders of Bel Air Cantina.
I mean, now I'm rethinking the 90 days for a new event, because this only applies to new events.
Not-
Right.
So,
But not,
It's the name of the
maybe for a new
business
event,
that
we do
do
need to
business
have it
as,
submitted.
and
120 days.
Yeah,
so then.
Because I think
it's
if
why
I-
do.
if I were planning an event, that's not fair to wait that long. They only have 45 days to pull out.
I think.
And also you should probably,
For a long
if
time.
you're planning a big event,
All
that,
our friends
that's
of
big on the,
media is always saying.
we're saying, let's go with the board and we talk about it.
Yeah.
Probably should do that.
Which there is.
Yeah.
You should know.
And I know with the bid, they came earlier with their newer events
That's
intentionally for that reason.
So with Ruckus,
Yeah.
collective.
But for all, just information power, right? The further we know, about, the more we can also be supportive.
Yeah, exactly.
So for new events, having the submission deadline 120 days versus
You
90 days.
guys are.
But that would be for new events only.
Time, we accept the business people. We
Okay, I'm fine with
transfer
that.
at least, so we want someone to be successful.
Even with us taking at
So
45
I think we
days
just
with
need to know
the
something.
approval
That's the
process.
risk you take if you try to.
So we were excited.
I mean,
We knew we'd be filling a gap.
If the event
And-
coordinator
It'll just be cool.
had
to do something
some
that's
reason,
close to something
I can't
that's
see
still with our shop.
let's just say,
His name is Noe Demora, it's N-O-N-C-A-M-O-R-A.
I I
So
don't
then
know,
you
doesn't
elaborate
really
more on,
matter,
like,
but there's
what
something they
is
want to do and it's time
from
sensitive.
seller.
And they can just stop and it doesn't.
Yeah, I know you probably heard me, right, so you have it. I mean, Bel Air, like I said, our venue's a lot more staffed, so we've got, we definitely are kind of tackling started with there, we have Taco Tuesdays that were, Tuesdays and Thursdays that were well known.
Well, this
Well, we have burritos, and we have our appetizers, we have an enchilada night, we have salads, we have soups,
Well,
nachos,
or no,
a
it
lot.
could be
So this place, you know,
like
very
Surf
small,
Atwater is a
small
street festival
kitchen,
technically, but it
it'll
doesn't.
be counter service, Bel Air
What
is
is the
a
block
full
party?
service restaurant. So this would be
But
counter
this
service
doesn't
with
apply.
I understand.
amenities of having people either bring you your food or check in on you. So it's not necessarily be as.
I'm just saying that if someone who's coordinated the
But,
event wants to go into, full on
That's true.
coordination, like, that's not really.
Oh, just like in what ways, like, will be different?
yeah, so
But
definitely more
that's
time,
why I
like
would
when
love
the
to say
station
you
is
have to
small.
have 100
We really want to
employees.
concentrate on
That's kind
tacos,
of
we'll probably have between 15 and 22
But I don't know what
tacos.
it is.
And we'll still have appetizers, like we're still working on all of that. And margaritas and fresh juices, that's,
Yeah,
more
but if you feel like you have a
And
preference
then,
was
do you have like
leaving
things
where
for
it is,
goals for
just in terms of
like,
staff time,
things
trying to push
that you
things
want
through the
that's different,
process,
I guess, than your other
working with the
restaurants?
applicant, is there,
I think,
more time
you know,
or
I really,
good with 90 days?
to go and
I think staff would
pick
prefer
up
more
and
time.
delivery is like such a huge part of our restaurant now, and I think to really streamline that.
But I think the 90 days was
People.
fine with
Sufficient.
the
Have
draft.
like some
So
package
I think 90 days
like
was deemed as enough time, but I,
24 times.
30 days for JP also is adequate.
80 days, it comes with
I
some
think so
stuff.
too.
They can just
But I don't
pick it
know,
up,
like, because if we do,
instead of being like.
I'm
so-and-so
okay, if
wants
we can
this taco,
change
this taco.
the
So I think
approval,
doing kind of like
but if
family
it can take
packs
30 days to
or
get to the board,
just like
then
group
I'm comfortable
packages
with
would be
90 days.
cool. I really want to perfect
Yeah,
it.
I'm good too. I mean, at the end of the day, I just want to make sure that you don't
That's
end
some
up in
different
something
things
like
up our
this where we have
sleeves with like
somebody flies in.
recipes, because
what
you
do
know
we-
it, it's like
like
a
somebody
great
flies
chef
and
and
there's
there's
something
something
for,
that we haven't done at Bel Air.
but I guess maybe I'm just, it's a very
So
low
definitely
probability.
need-
Right,
It's
the
not
outlier.
perfect, Yeah.
Flavors and some new stuff that we've never done before.
And
And
when
we
we
did
did
have the
John
draft.
getting
We've
this
had the
all,
draft.
or you're
Give
gonna
them the staff.
your structure out?
The structure as a place has really
I
good.
mean, you
bulk.
could say 30 days,
So it's like we don't
unless
have
JP calls
to
meet, then it goes to the
But
board without
definitely-
JP, if that's the concern, but.
spending some time and money making it
Or about
look
just
like
like,
we want it to.
again, I don't think
look
we get out much further than 30, 31 days. Maybe we're just overthinking something that's on.
But I do like that with that caveat, because
So
if
we're
JP
just
now
down
has
for
flooded with
the
a bunch
name
of
of
other
it.
stuff, that kind of sensitivity.
So then, just to confirm,
And
if
there's
it's,
no reason
to
to
give it
cancel.
to us, it's what we'll do, or is it
That's,
schedule kind of?
yeah, that's the text.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm okay with that as long
Shannon,
as,
Austin?
Nice to meet you.
I'd like, I prefer going to JP now, but I mean, if there's some kind of logistical item where, again, if they submitted it yesterday, they wouldn't be able to hit that 30-day mark until next meeting is September 5th. So if it's like one of those really weird happenstances, then I'm okay with that. I just want to make sure that, these special events are so talked about, and we all hear about them,
Right.
and you just want to make sure that they get to a place where they're kind of given their hearing, given their day in court, if you will. We don't want something to just kind of die because our meeting schedule doesn't accommodate it.
I agree.
so I'm hearing consensus at 30 days for JP&L review. And then it would be forwarded to the board.
Okay. And I appreciate the thought that you gave that in terms of it just having an unlucky, timing.
And I also, I'm glad that we're clarifying, because it could really be read either way. I mean, it could be read now that it needs to go to the board, or it could be read the other way, so.
Sure.
I just think that's important to clarify so that we just know exactly what the process is. And more importantly, so that the applicant knows exactly what the process is, what to expect, because people put a lot in these events. And we hear a lot.
Sure.
And a lot of them are, and
Are fantastic.
all of them that I go through are fantastic.
Sure. Were there any other notes that you had? I'm only looking at you because you.
I don't think so. I think I'm good.
And staff has reviewed this draft with Angel. Dr. Rockworth, do you have anything?
I'm ready for last time, because I think it's good, I'm very happy that we have this. It's
we're gonna be finishing a bunch of stuff.
That's
Yeah.
great. All right, so with that, I would take a motion to approve this special ed ordinance and move it on to full board
So moved.
Oh,
With the changes.
with changes noted. That's a clumsy motion.
I'll second it. Trustee Bachor is still so moving, I will second that.
Yes, I stand.
Okay, any discussion? If not, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh.
Yeah, motion to adjourn.